Breaking news. Nikon leaks the Z9 Mark II. They launch the P1100 that goes to literally 3,000 millimeters. Couple of new Nikon lenses, and the OM-3 is launched. Also, Sony cameras can now sync directly into your Creative Cloud or Google Drive, and I actually tested it, and I'll tell you how well it works. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace.com/Tony is where you start when you need a presence on the web. It's where you go when you have a new project, a new business, an idea you want to share with the world. The fact is, social media, not that great. They make money from you. You make money from your Squarespace. So get your own domain name, sell products, take appointments from clients, show your pictures in the best format possible at squarespace.com/Tony. No credit card required. Try it out completely free. And when you love it, the coupon code Tony gets you 10% off. Thanks, Squarespace. First, the little stuff. Sony added features to what they call the Creators Cloud, not to be confused with Adobe's Creative Cloud. The Sony's Creators Cloud is storage where your Sony cameras can upload directly into. They connect to your access point, not even through your phone. They can upload directly into the storage, and from there, they can go out to Google Drive or Creative Cloud. So yeah, you can take a picture, at least at home, and have it pretty soon end up directly in Lightroom without connecting anything with a cable or taking out your memory card. It works pretty good. Actually, I had to make sure that my cameras were updated to the latest firmware. I had to update the Creators Cloud firmware. The setup for it was bad. It was clumsy. I couldn't connect to the Creative Cloud on my phone. I had to go to, but once I finally got it all working, I was able to take pictures, and within a few minutes, they would pop up on my computer in Creative Cloud, in Lightroom, or in my Google Drive, providing me a real-time backup. I wish it had cellular, and I really hope a future generation of cameras will give us the option to upload these pictures continually through cellular. That way, when we're out and about on the go, we can get real-time backups, at least JPEG backups, in case our camera is stolen or destroyed or something.
The biggest problem I had was battery life. I started the transfer at 72% and it ran out of battery before finishing, so you'd better plug it in.
Now, the new Nikon stuff, and there's a lot. Nikon launched the 35mm f1.2, and this lens looks absolutely fantastic. It's about a full half stop faster than the f1.4 lenses. 35mm is a great angle of view. It's what a lot of vloggers use in video. It's also super important for street photography, for events like weddings, wedding receptions. Having an f1.2 aperture lets a little more light in for better low light performance, but also gives you more background blur. An f1.2 aperture lets more light in for better low light performance, but it also blurs the background more. So if you're looking for a little more background separation in your street photography or events, Nikon also launched the P1100, the sequel to the very popular P1000 from like 6 years ago. There's good news and bad news, but honestly, it's mostly bad news. First, the specs, these are completely unchanged. It is 125 times zoom. That's crazy. It goes from 24mm equivalent to 3,000 millimeters. Now, they advertise it as an f2.8 lens. It is physically f2.8 only when you're at 24mm, but because the sensor is very small, the equivalent aperture is f15 to f44. They're kind of doing a trick here where they give you the focal length in 35mm terms, but they don't give you the aperture in 35mm terms. This is common. All the camera manufacturers do it, but it's shady when they all do it, and it's shady when Nikon does it. And actually, I kind of hate how most of the photography media doesn't call them out on this. They simply state this as a 24 to 3,000mm f2.8 lens, which would be physically like the Hubble telescope. It would be absolutely massive. 24 to 3,000, f14 to f44 describes the results you would get. And if you were comparing it to any other camera, like your interchangeable lens camera with big old lenses, that's how you should compare it, because it describes the amount of light that it can gather, but also the amount of background blur that you can get. I've pre-ordered one of these, so we'll be able to actually test it and compare. Unfortunately, it has the same very dated 16 megapixel sensor with a 5.46 crop. It shoots 4K only at 30 frames per second. Considering a lot of phones now do 4K at 120 frames per second, this is very outdated, or it will do full HD at 60 frames per second. The electronic viewfinder is low resolution, 1024 by 768, and the rear screen even lower resolution, 640 by 480. These specs are bad, but the price is actually not that bad. Here's what's new about it. They added USB-C because the European Union has new laws that require all electronics sold to have this sort of standardized interface. That's what finally drove Apple to upgrade to USB-C, and that's what's forcing Nikon to upgrade this, I think. They're also refreshing the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, so we should get better performance out of that. There's so many updates missing from this. Like, people love the P1000 for wildlife photography, but there's still no animal IAF, which has become standard on all Nikon cameras, so that's like a huge drawback, and this camera especially really would benefit from better autofocus. If you have a P1000, you definitely should not upgrade. In fact, if you're interested in this camera, you might be better off just searching around and finding a used P1000 and saving yourself a bunch of money. But nonetheless, we are going to test it to find out if a fixed lens camera can really perform well for telephoto stuff. If you want to pick one up, use this link here. Now on to the Nikon Z9 Mark II rumors coming to us from NikonRumors.com. Nikon Rumors is saying that it's going to have red video features. So that'll be things like being able to pull in your color spaces. They are improving one of the biggest drawbacks to the original Z9, which is they're adding 5.7 million EVF. So, you get an extra 50% detail in the viewfinder, which will be really nice. And they're also adding content credentials, which can help validate that your raw file is not AI generated or something. Things like media companies, ESPN or CNN can use this to verify that a picture has not been faked since it was taken with the camera. Unfortunately, it seems like most everything is going to be the same. And this is a recurring theme that we're going to be seeing for a lot of cameras in the next couple of years. The same with just a few little refreshes. It's going to have the same sensor, probably the same frames per second, because the existing frames per second pretty much max out the sensor's capabilities. I'm hoping they add a flip screen instead of just a tilty screen. Though I know not everybody's with me on that, I'm also really hoping they add a mechanical shutter because of flash sync speed. I want to use this camera to take portraits, but my flash sync speed is limited to 1/200th of a second, whereas my Sony A1, the direct competitor, goes to 1/400th of a second. More bad news, this isn't coming until next Winter Olympics, probably February of 2026. I know, it's a full year out, but we're already building anticipation, and I'm excited to see what Nikon does. Finally, let's talk about the OM Systems OM-3. Again, this is basically the same camera that you've seen before, just repackaged in sort of a retro body. But I think it looks nice. It's still 20 megapixels, so it's stacked for good performance. The viewfinder, pretty low resolution at 1024 by 7068. The rear screen, about 800 by 600, so better than that P1100, but still pretty low resolution compared to the smartphone screens that we're all seeing. The standard frames per second will be just 6 frames per second, though you'll be able to put it into SH1 or SH2 mode that will extract more frames per second, 50 or 120 frames per second. There are no analog dials for it, which is too bad because it has that retro vibe. And it's a big letdown that this camera still has the PASM dials. But the fact is, they would have had to do a little bit of development. That would have been a little bit of innovation. And I think that's more than OM Systems is willing to do. They're really only willing to repackage the same stuff and hope that they can sell it to their existing customers. How does that compare to other cameras? Not good. Like the Canon R8 is one of our favorite beginner cameras. It's full frame, 24 megapixels, and performs really amazingly well, and it's $1,300. The Sony A7C is cute. It has chrome, it's full frame, great autofocus. It's about $1,500. These cameras have sensors that are 4 times bigger. They're in systems that are receiving a constant supply of new innovative lenses, not just sort of repackaged lenses, but real innovation. And at this point, I can't imagine anybody jumping into the Micro Four Thirds system.
DP Review did a good job of comparing the OM-3 against similarly priced cameras. Actually, all of these are the same price or lower. Each of these cameras has a sensor that's 2 or 4 times bigger. Each of these cameras has significantly more megapixels, All of the competitors have 2 card slots, not just one. The only advantage the OM has is it's a little bit lighter. Their studio scene gives us an easy way to compare the low light performance, and we can see at ISO 12800, wow, the OM-3 looks so much worse than these other cameras that are the same price or less.
The Canon system, but especially the Sony system, have a wide variety of really small and light lenses that are less expensive. So you can get that full frame performance without going to a big camera. In the comments down below, let me know what you think. And thank you to our sponsor, Squarespace, which makes your own web presence incredibly easy. You should not depend on social media, which is in chaos right now and could go completely away. Your own website is much more stable because it's something that you own. Get your own domain name. Like I have northrupphotography.com. That means you get your own custom email addresses. You can have a store. You can take appointments from clients at squarespace.com/Tony. Pick a template, make any adjustments you want. I promise you'll love it. If you decide to sign on after your free trial, the coupon code Tony will get you 10% off. Thank you, Squarespace. Bye.